This is kind of and another thing. um, One of the things I got done today was I took my car in for an oil change. It's not my car, actually. It's my wife's car. And it's used but new to us. So I'm still paying to have the oil changed. The other side effect of having a garage that looks like this is you don't have room to pull in. I am not changing the oil in a car on the driveway in this kind of weather that we've been having with snow and ice and what have you. It's just asking for trouble. So I will just pay to have it done. Oil change is done. I'm pulling out. And my engine light goes on. It's like, oh, alright. Put it in park, go back inside and say, hey, engine light just came on. It wasn't on before. I want you guys to run through and make sure that everything's tight and, everything's copacetic and you remember to put oil in, whatever, all of the various and sundry things that could go wrong when you have somebody else change your oil. And they said, sure, no problem. They looked at it and they got the code out and they cleared the code. They said, well, we actually had to look this one up. I was like, okay. Well, it wasn't in our code database. All right. What was it? It was the oil temperature sensor came up with a unreasonable temperature. That was actually the error code. Unreasonable oil temperature. Now, okay, you could see that as being unreasonable in that it was too hot, like it was off the scale. Unreasonable in that it was too low, it was below the scale. But it's kind of a weird thing to have happen. And so I was like, what is that supposed to mean anyway? It's like, well, apparently when you change the oil in some of this particular model of vehicle, it will throw an error when the oil temperature goes from drained to filled again. Something gets goofed up in the oil temperature sensor and gives you this error. So now I have to look out for that anytime we change the oil. But it's a good thing to know because they had the code reader there and they were able to, go ahead and diagnose the problem and clear it. And it didn't come back on once I drove home. So I think that pretty much did it. But it's one of those things that, feels like that shouldn't happen. Either the system should be smart enough to realize, oh, I've gotten an unreasonable reading on this temperature. I'm going to reset and, rather than trip the engine light, and then be smart enough to keep track of that so it's it's in the chain if something else goes wrong and you end up having to pull all the error codes off. But don't throw the engine light on because you had an unreasonable oil temperature. And I mean, if the temperature is within bounds of reality, it's somewhere below surface of the sun and somewhere above, the rings of Saturn. Somewhere in that temperature you ought to be okay, right? But I don't know. So whatever the temperature would happen to be of a running engine of this particular variety, I don't know. But anyway, that's kind of where I had kind of an what moment today, and figured I'd go ahead and, if nothing else, mark it down for the next time when I finally do start changing the oil on this thing, so that maybe I'll remember, because I've spoken it, put it out there, be like, make sure that if the engine light comes on, you can clear it and check for this bizarre code. Anyway, that's probably it for tonight.